Hey, Stephen down here doing the junkyard crawl. You know, everybody dreams of finding something really rare in the junkyard, like maybe an AC Cobra or a Sunbeam Tiger. Is this a Tiger here at Bernardston Auto Wrecking in Bernardston, Massachusetts? Well, we got to find out. If it was or was not, there would be a logo right here with a small V8 emblem. But again, it's missing. So then we go under the hood, where we would see on an actual Tiger built between, I think, 64 and 67, there would be a 289 Ford right here. Okay, no 289 Ford. The reality is, because we see that steering box right there, this is a Sunbeam Alpine, which is the bare bones from which the Tiger grew. Now, the Alpines were built between 1959 and 1968, and they were four-cylinder powered. Pushrod engine, 84 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 23 seconds. Not a fast car, but it was a fairly reasonably priced British sports car. The beauty of these are, they all had standard Girling front disc brakes hiding behind these stamped steel wheels. There was an optional wire wheel for these if you wanted it, but again, when Carroll Shelby got involved in building the Sunbeam Tiger with its 289 V8 or 260 V8, they found that that steering box had to go. So if you ever find one of these things in a junkyard with rack and pinion front steering, which will be a steering rack underneath the A-arms, that would be the beginnings of V8 Tiger royalty and big bucks. Beyond that, the V8 engine was about 3.5 inches longer than a Sunbeam four-banger. So believe it or not, just like Hearst in 1968, with the Hemi darts, the Sunbeam guys actually hammered the firewall in certain areas to make room for the 289. So this firewall is pristine. We know this is certainly not a V8 powered Tiger. So again, it is a Sunbeam Alpine. Not a bad thing, really. Let's take a closer look at the back. Now, these were body-on-frame cars, not unit construction, but again, Sunbeam was in there with mostly full mid-sized saloons and stuff in the British marketplace. And these could be had with automatics or manuals, but the vast majority of these things were manuals. And here's the hole in the floor right here for the transmission. And bucket seat interior, as they all were. And unlike a lot of British sports cars at this time, which still had side curtains, the Sunbeam Alpine came standard with roll-up rear windows. Here's the transmission sitting here on the trunk of this thing, and it's kind of an interesting piece to look at. It's aluminum bell housing, aluminum tail, aluminum shift rail with an iron case. It's a 4-speed, and this rail on top, the shifter would have lived right out of this hole here, right there, and you would have, there's a rod that slides back and forth when you move the shifter that would then engage or disengage the various 4-speed gears inside. A nice detail on all Sunbeams, whether they're Alpines or Tigers, is gas cap right here on the side. Kind of looks like a 68 Charger piece, a little bit, but there it is, quick disconnect deal. The gas tank would be inside the rear wing, or the quarter panel, as we call it here. The Brits call it the wing or the guard. But in the trunk, let's take a peek and see what we got. Yeah, okay, pretty much rusty. And another detail too is because the Sunbeam Tiger had a larger rear axle, it used a Salisbury or a Dana Model 45, so to speak, would have a bump at the rear. This one has the standard Hotchkiss style rear axle, which would have been for the 4-cylinder engine. So again, there's 3 strikes against this thing being a Tiger. Beyond that, there is a Tiger registry, which would let us know for sure if this was or was not. But beyond all that, those 3 things, no rack and pinion, a pristine firewall, and no hump in the back, tell us this is not a V8 powered Tiger. If this was a Tiger, it would be, you know, probably a $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 car when restored. This one here is probably about $160,000 away from being worth driving again. But with that said, something kind of cool is the transmission. Now, this is the basic Sunbeam Alpine 4-speed, but back in 1962, 63, when Carroll Shelby and Ken Miles did their initial work on the Tiger prototypes, they initially used a Borg-Warner T10 aluminum case 4-speed transmission, but as they went into production, Ford replaced the T10 Borg-Warner with a Ford toploader 4-speed tranny. So you'll find that in production cars. Now the difference is the Ford toploader is an iron tranny, kind of heavy. The Borg-Warner T10 is aluminum. Another detail too is that when these things were under development, before they actually became a production model, these were known as the Thunderbolt, which in 1964, that term Ford used on the drag Fairlanes with the 427s. But this term Thunderbolt also applies to Sunbeam, the parent maker of these cars. Back in 1925, they had a land speed record car called the Thunderbolt. So ironically, while the Thunderbolt in the world of Ford means 427 drag car, over at Sunbeam in England, it meant the 1925 land speed record holder car, the Sunbeam, the Sunbeam Thunderbolt. Now, one thing too about this is that in 1967, the Roots Group, including Sunbeam, was sold to Chrysler Corporation. So on a 1967 or thereabouts Sunbeam Tiger, one of the last of the breed, you'll find here a Pentastar, a Chrysler Pentastar. But the crazy thing is, those cars still had the Ford 289, the Tiger II. So a lot of folks say that when Chrysler bought Sunbeam in 66, 67, a 273 Mopar went under the hood. Didn't happen. So it's kind of a weird thing. If you owned a last year of production Sunbeam Tiger, you had a Ford 289 under the hood, a Chrysler Pentastar, and you bought it from a Chrysler dealership. But again, that Ford V8 was an issue that made it kind of a no-win situation for Chrysler. But with that said, we may have found something special here. If it was really a Tiger, it would be really cool. As an Alpine restored, it might be worth 30 grand. And again, we're probably 130,000 away from this thing being 101%. So that's the story of the Sunbeam Alpine that's not a Tiger. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to the Steve Magnante YouTube channel, and there's a lot more where this came from.